So we begin this evening the sacramental part of Holy Week with the Mass of the Lord's Supper, 7 o'clock in church, Holy Thursday, and we'll reflect on that for a few moments and then have our evening meditation. And then we'll go and prepare for the Mass. There are two aspects to the Holy Thursday liturgy which take us, I think, into the heart of what we have been reflecting on during this week so far, stages of contemplation. Because although these are the liturgical, the sacramental aspects of Easter that we begin tonight, they are also mystical. They have a mystical import and importance. And it's important for us to connect our meditation with this sacramental side. The sacrament is an outward sign of an inward reality. We all probably learnt that in catechism. And the inward reality is, of course, what we touch into in meditation and operate from in our daily lives. And the sacramental aspect of our faith, which for many people has lost vitality and lost meaning, but the sacramental aspect of our faith, it really expresses this interior reality. And there are two sides to the liturgy this evening. One is what is often being called the lost sacrament of Christianity. It's the washing of the feet. We see that in the Gospel of John at the beginning of the Last Supper, where Jesus washes the feet of his disciples. And we'll tell that story again this evening in the Gospel, of course. And the drama of that incident is the shock that it creates, the indignation that Peter, for example, expresses at the idea that Jesus, his Lord and Master, should wash his feet. It seems to overturn the whole power structure that he had become comfortable with and was operating within. And anything that upsets our power structure is a revolution. And revolutions can be very messy and uncomfortable and disturbing affairs. And yet this is a revolution of love, not a revolution of violence. Jesus is not trying to impose a new order on humanity. He is witnessing to the reality of this new order. He's saying this is actually how things are. This is the nature of reality and the nature of our relationships. And whatever he does in Christian faith, we understand to be itself a revelation of the nature of God. So in some equally shocking way, this lost sacrament of the washing of the feet tells us something about the nature of divinity itself. Jesus puts it very succinctly where he says, I came to serve, not to be served. Well, that shows a fundamental rearrangement of our egotistical view of the world. So this evening, after the Gospel, after we've heard the story from the Gospel, we will break up into, I think, a few small groups, and each person will wash the feet of the person next to them. Each of us will have our feet washed and will wash the feet of our neighbour. And it's something that we can describe, but when you actually do it, I think the meaning of it becomes very tangible and very powerful. Peter's indignation and his refusal to have his feet washed is a reflection of the ego's need and instinctual reaction is to stay within a safe power structure. whether you see yourself as inferior or superior. But what the sacrament of the feet, of the washing of the feet does, is to reverse that power structure and place service at the centre of our relationships to each other. But we are not there to dominate, to exploit, to control. We are there primarily to serve. And if we are prepared to be served, we must also be prepared to serve. It's the two sides of it. It's like loving and being loved. We don't know what love is unless we can be loved. And we cannot love others except to the degree that we have been loved ourselves. So there is, in this sacrament of the washing of the feet, a sign, a witness of a fundamental renunciation of what we normally think of as power over others. And it's this renunciation that renews relationships. It sets us into a quite new set of arrangements, set of networks with each other. But it is also this renunciation of power that we witness or we experience in the Eucharist itself, which is the second aspect of tonight's liturgy, the institution of the Eucharist at the Last Supper. And Jesus took the bread and wine, the simple signs of human nutrition, the fruit of human hands, of human work, and identified himself with this natural, this order of nature, and used it as a medium to give himself in an act of love, which can only be done, of course, when we renounce self. So the Eucharist is itself an outgrowth, as it were, of the washing of the feet, and it prepares us for tomorrow, which is the cross, the death, and of Jesus. This itself is a gift of self. So in each of these signs, the washing of the feet, the Eucharist, and the cross tomorrow, we are seeing aspects of the same profound and transformative movement of God through the humanity of Jesus. And if we can see these signs, if we can relate to them as what they really are, what they're really teaching us, then we are transformed by them, because we are touched by the truth. They are revealing the truth of things, seeing things as they really are. And in the Lectio this morning, we read of Jesus saying that we are consecrated by the truth. So, if we can see the truth revealed in these signs, we experience consecration. We usually use the word consecration just of the bread and the wine at the Mass. But if we think of ourselves as being consecrated, that is quite a lot more transformative and powerful. It is we who become the body of Christ. It's we who are filled with his life, with his experience of the truth. He was consecrated by the truth, and we are consecrated by the truth. And the truth is expressed in this gift of self. And if we just take a moment to reflect on the great gift and beautiful sign of the Eucharist, we can see how much damage we do to the truth if we don't see what it is witnessing to. How easily we turn the Eucharist into something sectarian. How easily we put too many rules and regulations. Everything requires some rules and regulations, but too many, too big, too high a wall around the Eucharist that sets it apart from the very people it was meant to be teaching and touching. Many of you grew up probably with the instruction that you had to be in a state of grace in order to receive Holy Communion. And well, there may be some point in that. You need to be open to grace, you need to be, sincerely open to the mystery of the Eucharist. But the idea was probably presented in a way that you had to be perfect, and you were only in a state of grace for a few seconds after you had made your confession, because after that you fell into sin again very quickly, which easily led to a kind of compulsive, neurotic disorder actually in a lot of Catholics, who felt that they were too sinful by nature even to go to communion once a year. Now there's been an attempt to, a strong attempt to free us from that and to recover the original meaning of the Eucharist, which was expressed by the early fathers as a medicine. The Eucharist is a medicine, and it's sick people who need medicine. I've come not for the healthy, but for the sick, Jesus said. Jesus was understood as the divine physician, and the Eucharist was the medicine of immortality. And this changes our whole attitude towards the Mass and towards the gift that we receive when we receive communion. It therefore enables us to approach the Mass not as a legalistic enterprise, when we remember that Judas, received the bread and the wine at the Last Supper, even though Jesus knew what he was going to do, that Peter was about to betray him 3 times, and Jesus knew that was going to happen. So he was perfectly well aware that he was giving himself to people who are not heroes and not perfect people by any stretch of the imagination. As I've been saying several times during the week, perfectionism is not what it's about. We're not about becoming perfect. So the liturgy this evening teaches us something profoundly restorative, really, to our humanity, provided we can accept to have our feet washed, provided by one who is our Lord and Master, provided we can receive Christ's gift of self in the Eucharist, despite the fact that we know we are very imperfect human beings. There's a beautiful poem by George Herbert which expresses this struggle of the human ego to receive the gift of God's love. Love bade me welcome, but my soul drew back, guilty of dust and sin. But quick-eyed love, observing me grow slack from my first entrance in, drew nearer to me, sweetly questioning if I lacked anything. So this expresses Peter's reaction and our own reaction possibly to this unimaginably generous gift of self. I am not worthy. We actually say that just before communion. I am not worthy to receive you. But, the big but is there. If we left it at I am not worthy, we'd all go home. We wouldn't have to be involved in any of this. We just construct our own ego system separate from the divine gift of love. But if we put the but in there, but only say the word, and I shall be healed, then we are involved in the Christian experience. We are allowing this unimaginable gift of Christ's self to unfold over time and transform us. So, let's take a moment to prepare them to say our word, the word of the mantra. Let me remind you again of how simple this prayer of the heart is. And if we ever think that we're unable to do it, or that we're not worthy of doing it, then we only have to reconnect to the simplicity of it and start again. We sit down, we sit still, we close our eyes. We sit with our back straight so that we stay alert. And then silently, in mind and heart, we begin to say our word. The word I would recommend is the word Maranatha. 4 syllables, Ma, Ra, Na, Tha. Listen to the word as you say it. It's in the listening that we take the attention off ourselves, that we, as it were, short-circuit the ego system just by the simple act of listening, which is also an act of faith. And when the mind gets distracted and wanders off, we simply return to the word, humbly and confidently, without any sense of self-judgment or self-criticism because we're not perfect at it. It's in the returning to the word that we make the journey.